Welcome everyone to Requiem by Night, but Requiem for London. Wow, you let me introduce one scene and I already screw it up. Welcome to Requiem for London. We find ourselves.
It's fine. Our first idea was Requiem by Night, but we had several other things on the board. And you continue.
You heard it here first. The beta test was called Requiem by Night. Now, cast your eyes to the Hilton. Once more, this vortex of dark and dismal things that are occurring in the city proper. Perhaps something a bit more nasty begins to walk the halls. And definitely, Nora's pissed off as per usual. So there are thunderclouds atop that Venture's head. However, in amongst the thunderclouds and the pistophora and the antsiness and the addiction that's absolutely kicking her in the teeth right now, there's something further, something that ticks like a clock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, rummaging around. Any good scientist and any researcher will know this. There are wheels and cogs in motion in the back of the brain that will not be silenced, that speak cacophonies over the top of each other till maybe a truth is discerned, very much like the philosophers of old would speak volumes to say one thing. And so as Nora paces forward and back, her retainer standing in one corner, just smoking, looking out the window, and then going over to the balcony and because he's not interested at all, and just continuing to smoke one after the other, coughing his horrible cough and wheezing his horrible wheeze. Jedrej is a heavy smoker, and Nora knows that unless he's galled quite quickly, he will probably die of lung cancer. But until then, he's still alive, he's still breathing. There's that itch under her skin, that hollow in her heart, that acid burn in her stomach of the addiction still always in the back of her mind, but she pushes it aside and begins to just monologue and scratch the back of her head and just wander hands on hips. All right. We've discovered that all of it is ingestible. Now that we know that everything is ingestible, which means that we can concentrate it into separate tastes. How does that react with kindred vitae, though? How does every single individual component work? That is the question that we have to ask ourselves. And furthermore, can we replicate this with kindred vitae also, or is it just two completely different? Go back to basics, Nora. Go back to basics. Every one of us were mortal once. We have then transcended to become something different, which means that the building blocks are still the same theoretically. And seeing as it is a simple evolution from one stage of being to the next, there has to be something that carries over. What that is, though, and how that will react, that is a completely different story altogether. I test on myself, but what good scientist does that? What good scientist doesn't is the counter. But no, not just yet. This condition, Jedrej, put some music on, would you? The planets, please. Jupiter. And the planet's theme of Jupiter would rise up a heavy cacophony of sound, of clashes, of cymbals and violins, all very dark and very stormy and very powerful and potent in the music. And Nora begins to just hum as she taps her lip. I need a lab. I need a test subject. I need a few test subjects. One thing at a time, woman. She looks out at the night sky, and the wicked grin just cracks her face. Joanna. Dear little Joanna on her deathbed. You're nearly dead anyway. Who would miss you? And I'm sure you'd be happy to give Mummy everything that she needs after 3 nights of bonding you. But that's in the future. That is in the maybe not so distant future. Hmm. Well, one thing's for certain. It certainly tastes nicer if you just centrifuge out the red blood cells. Buffy is so fatty anyway. Ugh. Far more potent. Much more beautiful. Jedrej, come here for a second, please.
He will just sort of startle from his wall and sort of fumble over to you. He's still quite tired, quite exhausted, but then again, you did need a very large sample in order to get the amount of tests needed in order to get a true scientific answer to your question. And the smoking certainly isn't helping, but he does come over as asked. You can tell the spark of will has not yet returned to him. He's still very much beholden to your every command, even though you do not need to flex that ventral muscle of yours.
And Nora just sort of pops up on the bed, crosses her legs. She's barefoot, just nice and comfortable, and goes, "How are you doing, my dear?"
Not bad. As he takes another large drag on his cigarette.
Nora will look up at the smoke detector in the hotel room, which has been torn open and the battery removed. She knows. She's travelled with Jedrej before. Okay, now, you've been very good to me for a very long time, haven't you, my dear?
He will sort of look at you nervously because whenever you say something like that in that tone, it usually means something very bad is about to happen. Usually to him.
What now, cat got your tongue?
No. Yes, you've been very good. It has been.
Well, oh, please continue. I'm interested to hear.
It has been, how do you say, an interesting ride.
It has been an interesting ride, and I have grown quite fond of you. Nora will actually reach up and just caress your cheek. Growing quite fond of you, Jedrej. So I thought that I'd give you a pay rise.
You mean more money?
Money. What's money, Jedrej? A concept. A concept built by humans to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't like. No, I was thinking something a bit more substantial.
As he does take another long drag on the cigar, it does calm his nerves a bit. You do notice how his muscles relax as the nicotine works its way through the blood. It eases, it feeds the addiction. It reminds you of how your own body is aching for that very similar sweet release, but from a much more potent drug.
What do you think you've stepped in when you started working for me, Jedrej?
As he will cough and wheeze again. Excuse me. More art, less science? I knew I was getting into something interesting.
You are cute. What do you think? Actually, come here. And Nora will get up off the bed and grab Jedrej and just put her arm around him and just lead him back to the balcony and just cast her hand over the city in front of him. What do you think of all this?
As you just hear him scoff, just and he'll just raise an eyebrow at you. No other words need to be said at that point. It's the same look of disgust that you have when you look out over the city.
And with that, Nora's hand just sort of goes from his waist up along his back and just starts caressing the back of his hair. And fuck it. Just actually grasps the hair quite tightly and then force her head to look at him. And for shock value, bangs her out. Eyes gleam. It's like, so you didn't have any idea about this?
As the cigarette sort of just falls from his mouth as he's gawking. Although he's not as surprised as you might expect. This sort of has been a lead up right now after all the weird shit that's been going down recently. But he will just sort of nod his head, dumbstruck.
And so what would you say if I said to you, and fingers just go up his chest, that you have two little problems in here? You can hear it when you wake up. I see your bloody tissues in the bathroom. You're not going to live very much longer unless I intervene, but I want you to beg me for it.
As suddenly a bit of that cynical nature in him returns as he raises an eyebrow to you. Just will say, rather you throw me off building
now.
He
Nora's
doesn't like
actually
it when
going to...
you laugh like that. He actually sort of looks again very nervous and scared.
And Nora will drag him back into the building, into the room, and close the blackout curtains behind her. Is he struggling? Oh, please tell me he's struggling.
He certainly got his eyes on the door, and you figure that the only reason he hasn't bolted yet is because you already so thoroughly had worn down his will up until this point, with the constant use of dominate and other less mystical talents in order to slowly erode this faithful yet reluctant servant's will.
There's a certain rush that Nora gets from the power, just having somebody under her thumb squirming under her grip, that almost makes her forget the addiction, almost, but not enough. It's so satisfying to have somebody so uncomfortable around her. It's like you are feeling shitter than I am, which makes me feel better by default. So I'm just going to go with it. She throws him down on the bed and in an instant is just on top of him, hands on the shoulders, just nose grazing his cheek. All you have to say is please. I'm a big sucker for manners, you know.
As again, he's just sort of looking up at you, and he can feel that despite your frame, there is power in your grip. There is. You are more than you appear, like a tiger wearing the skin of a lithy artist. Someone you would not expect to throw down a full grown man and pin him to a bed effectively. And he does look up. It's with fear in his eyes, he will sort of bite his lip, holding on to that last bit of cynical dignity that he has left.
Grab collarbone, dig thumb in underneath, and then just push.
As at the pain, that's when he freezes, like, please, please don't kill me. He
Oh,
actually
sweetheart, I'm
starts crying. It's he is thoroughly broken at this point.
not... See, was that so hard? And Nora will roll up his sleeves and just sit back and just still pin him down with her weight, and then just carve open a wrist and just let the blood drip onto his chest, and then put her arm downwards to make sure that the blood runs down into her fingers, and then put her fingers down into his throat. Suck.
A very interesting thing happens when you do this is he does. Like as you're looking at him, really looking at him, and he's powerless before you, it's you actually see a slight change start to overcome him. It's that glint that's reflected in his scared, watery eyes. almost becomes to mirror your own, and he will, but he'll start trembling. It's a very subtle transformation, but as though by taking in that Vita, he also took in something else as you spend one willpower point to initiate this. And he does so, but the water begins to dry away a little bit. He's no longer shaking, he's just staring you right back, as almost saying, "You win this round."
I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, I'll ghoul the fellow right there and then. And once he actually begins to oblige and suck at the blood, Nora's actually going to drag him up and hold him quite motheringly, and then just start rocking him. A storm is cast upon the sea, whose eye is filled with tears. And just sing him the entire song of Red Roses. Nice and gentle. And then hopefully let him sleep. And if he doesn't sleep, she'll dominate him to sleep. It's too pretty of a picture to wreck.
True. It's almost as though that initial, blood bonding, this connection to you, does most of the job for you, will him to sleep, and it's though the vitae that's now flowing through him does the rest of the work as he begins to calm and he will eventually sleep.
Nora just smiles. Good boy. Closes the wound. And just goes to wash her hands. Nice and clean. Very Lady Macbeth. And then go over to a medical cabinet, open a little pack of syringes, and begin to take samples anew from the freshly called Jedrej, which she intends to study. Because if you're going to study two entities at separate parts of evolution, the human and the vampire, the blood and the vitae, then there has to be a median, and this is the median. This is going to be the eureka moment that actually shows her these subtle changes that then transports into the vitae. At least that's the theory. So while Jedrej is snoring perhaps less than usual as the vitae works its magic and saves him from that dastardly lump in his lungs. Oh, what a humanitarian Nora is. She will be back to him, bent over her microscope with wide eyes staring down at the differences that are occurring. Would you like a roll from me?
Oh boy, would I. In that case, give me academics plus, I'd say, intelligence, because you have all the time in the world right now. The night is not young, but you still have several hours, and with Jedrej out like a light, and you're able to very easily retrieve, and quite skillfully, I'd say add a +1 bonus to this roll since he's just freshly ghouled.
So an additional dice
Yep.
to that? Yep, there we go. There we go, 3 9s sitting there for you. It's not exceptional, but it does the trick.
Oh, yes, and it does. As you examine the blood right now from the earlier samples, you're able to notice several minute details, specifically in regards that the blood you took, it's still fresh. You can still smell the vitae in it, as opposed to the samples that you have beside you, despite your best efforts to add longevity to the samples. They've long lost whatever component separates it from just ordinary blood or its parts and the vitae. But here, as you examine it, I'd say, you begin to see something sort of squirming alongside the blood cells. You almost think this might be some sort of trick of the light, or perhaps you zoomed in the microscope too much, but this connection you have with Jedrej right now, it allows you to see something just sort of moving unseen to the normal eye amongst the blood sample you have right now. As you examine it, you can clearly not see it in the other one, but it is becoming as clear as day to you. But you get this feeling that it is not vitae as you use your more heightened senses for sniffing out vitae. You detect, or at least theorize, again, most of this is sort of a gut feeling, but using what you see and what you smell in that such specific scent for vitae, you get the feeling that the vitae is still within the cells themselves, within the plasma, within the individual parts, but this other substance that's sort of moving, intermingling with the other stuff is something else besides vitae.
Most interesting. Well, nothing for it. I'll take a sample of myself and compare.
Quick question, where do you put this sample in comparison to the other samples?
Hmm? Oh,
How do you
fridge.
have it
I,
laid up? I was just saying
I,
fridge.
I, yeah, I have fridge set up, and the fridge light would have been swapped out for a red light once discovering that Vita doesn't react well to light itself. Not that obviously there's a light on in the fridge all the time, but every little bit helps.
Good idea. As you compare your own blood, give me a intelligence plus occult roll right now.
Now I need to check my sheet. I have occult. I don't know how much. Only the one. And one success.
Since it's still so fresh and you're still able to perceive this unseen element within Jedrish's blood, as you look at your own, you can clearly see it almost, this almost colorless substance, more not colorless, sort of absence of color that circulates unseen. And as you put the sample close to Jedrish's, as you examine, Jedrish's blood seems to almost be pulled, as though there was a certain amount of iron within it, and somebody just put a magnet next to the glove or blood. It seems to just be ever so slightly attracted to your own.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
as
Well,
time goes on, it's this sight begins to fade from you, and very soon you can no longer perceive this substance in Jedrish's sample, although you can just barely perceive it in your own.
most interesting. Well, that certainly gives me something to think about. Final note here. I should still have a bit of Jedrish's normal human blood in the fridge, and I'd like to introduce a drop of my own blood to that and just watch what goes on there.
Excellent. There's no roll for this, since you've already made the successful rolls earlier to get this information. As you pull out the sample and you add it, as you look under the scope, because you can still perceive this unknown element of your own blood, you actually see it begin to expand and sort of consume all of the space it can within Jedrish's sample, just growing and spreading until it is very similar to the other sample of Jedrish's blood.
Most interesting. Okay. Well, that answers that. So Nora just takes a piece of paper that she's scrolled out, tears it in half, puts it in the bin. Okay, well, that's not going to work now. Excellent. Well, seeing as I've got a freaking needle in my arm, I may as well take it out, centrifuge that, and see what parts it splits into, if any. And Aristide has run away. So this is where elevator music kicks in. Elevator music. We're going to go to a quick commercial break.
Oops,
Please
sorry, I forgot I
stay
was
to your
muted.
seats.
Terribly sorry. As I was saying to no one in particular, because I was muted, this will be a intelligent roll, and since you have Jedris unconscious right now, it will take probably the rest of the night, so you'll be getting the answers the following morning.
Mm-hmm.
Or following evening, as it were. But you can make the rolls now and see how well you do.
No, that's fine. Intelligence and anything or straight intelligence because you sort of cut out a tiny bit.
Intelligence plus medicine this time.
Righty dokie. Quick question to the ST. I did take a specialization, whatever you want to call it, in kindred physiology. So does that lower my difficulties, or how does that work?
It gives you an additional dice to this roll.
Does it? Okay.
Yep.
No, nothing happens.
Ooh.
I think the demons are back.
Unfortunately. So, unfortunately, that will become apparent in the next day.
And so with that, I dare say Nora is going to just be slumped over her work for a bit longer. But well, actually, she wouldn't because it needs to go into the centrifuge, come back, and all the rest of it. So she's got a night off. Time to watch The Incredibles.
All right. And shall this be where our scene ends?
Unless something's going to fly out of the closet at me, I'm quite happy to leave it there. I might, I would probably say with Jedrej asleep and a fair bit of work done, Nora might go out and actually hunt and try to seduce somebody into a bit of food because room service is getting dastardly boring right now.
And then give me a quick hunting roll, and I will narrate you out.
Hunting roll is what, my dear? Sorry.
It's whatever skill you're going to be using for hunting. Are you going to be seducing? Are you going to be stalking? Are you going to set a trap? It's still creative. Really, any combination of stuff would work.
I need to make a fate dice roll because Nora's in two minds. She's going to be an idiot. Okay, she's still tripping on the power of having Jedrej at her absolute beck and call, the quivering mass below. So she's going to do something she usually doesn't do. She's usually a seductive predator, a jovial one, a socialite, and all the rest of it. But tonight, I think she wants to stalk someone.
All right, in that case, let's try dexterity plus stealth.
I have it done in stealth.
Woo.
I'm gonna put a willpower to this. Actually, no, I'm not because fuck it. The more dice I have, the more it fucks up usually. Here's 2 dex, 1 stealth. No. Ooh. Oops.
Ooh,
Narrate me out.
unfortunately. Yeah. Unfortunately, the power sort of went to Nora Hillingham's head as she stalks the people of London. Some of them think her perhaps lost, perhaps some sort of mugger, however unlikely it is with her current getup. But as the night wears on, it becomes apparent that she's not going to be able to find a particular target to have her way with and dine on. And as she returns back to the Hillingham again with her horrible string of luck intact, it seems, she will order some room service in order to make the best use of her night and at least recover a tiny bit of detail. Although, if the Hilton starts realizing they're running out of bellhops, this might be a problem. However, the night goes on, the dawn approaches. Nora Hillingham retires for the evening, and as the death sleep overtakes her, unbeknownst to her, the swarm of flies that were following her flutter through the wall on ephemeral wings and off into the city. And this is where our scene will end. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful night.